The transatlantic flight from New York to London screeches to a halt on the tarmac, passengers shrieking as security storms aboard, dragging Lena and Marcus Hayes off in handcuffs, blood streaking their faces from a vicious brawl. Hours earlier, they'd stepped on with quiet swagger, first-class tickets in hand, expecting luxury. One flight attendant's refusal to serve them ignited a firestorm of prejudice, unraveling a secret that could topple their empire. What flipped? A simple snub into this brutal chaos? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. And if you're fired up for justice, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping tales. Lena Hayes stepped onto the Skylux Airlines jet at JFK with the kind of poise that turned heads, her tailored navy blazer hugging her frame, a crisp white blouse underneath catching the soft glow of the cabin lights. Her heels clicked against the floor as she moved down the aisle, a sleek leather briefcase clutched in one hand. Her chin tilted just enough to signal quiet confidence. Behind her trailed Marcus Hayes, her husband, his broad shoulders filling out a charcoal suit, a faint grin tugging at his lips as he adjusted the strap of his duffel bag. His days as a pilot still lingered in his easy stride, a man who knew planes like they were extensions of himself. They were bound for London, a quick trip to seal a deal that had pushed their tech empire into the stratosphere. First class was their domain, a perk they'd earned through years of grinding, and as they settled into seats 2A and 2B, the hum of the engines felt like a victory lap. Lena slid her briefcase under the seat, her fingers brushing the cool leather, while Marcus leaned back, stretching his legs. A flight attendant passed with a tray of champagne, and Marcus flagged her down, his voice warm. "Two, please." The woman nodded, handing over flutes that sparkled under the overhead lights. They clinked glasses, the bubbles fizzing against their lips, a rare moment of calm before the chaos of meetings ahead. Lena's eyes flicked to her phone, already buzzing with emails, her mind half on the contract they'd sign in 48 hours. Marcus watched her, his grin widening. "You ever gonna relax, babe?" She smirked, not looking up. "When we own the skies, maybe." But not everyone saw them the way they saw themselves. Claire Donovan, a flight attendant with 16 years, under her belt and a permanent scowl etched into her face, stood near the galley, her arms crossed tight against her navy uniform. Her blonde hair was pulled into a severe bun, strands fraying like her patience. She'd clocked Lena and Marcus the second they boarded, her sharp blue eyes narrowing as they sank into those plush first-class seats. Something about them grated on her, a itch she couldn't scratch. They didn't fit her picture of the elite, the usual parade of pale faces in designer suits who flashed platinum cards and barked orders. Claire had spent years perfecting her radar, spotting who belonged and who didn't. And these two? They didn't. She leaned toward a younger attendant, a wiry kid named Jake, her voice low and clipped. "Look at them up there. Standards are slipping, huh?" Jake glanced over, shrugged, and went back to stacking napkins. Claire's lips thinned. She didn't need his agreement. She knew what she saw. The plane taxied down the runway, the city skyline shrinking into a blur of lights. Beyond the windows, Lena sipped her champagne, the dry bite of it grounding her as she scrolled through a presentation deck. Marcus loosened his tie, his gaze drifting to the clouds breaking apart outside. The cabin settled into a rhythm, the soft clink of glassware, and murmurs of conversation filling the air. Claire made her rounds, her tray balanced with practiced ease, her smile tight and professional, as she offered drinks to a gray-haired businessman in 1C, then a woman in pearls at 3B. When she reached Lena and Marcus, though, her steps slowed. Marcus raised a hand, signaling for refills, his tone casual. "Another round, please." Claire's eyes flicked over him, then to Lena, who barely glanced up from her screen. For a beat, she didn't move, her tray hovering just out of reach. Then she turned on her heel, striding back toward the galley without a word. Marcus blinked, his hand still raised, the rejection hanging in the air like a slap. Lena's fingers paused on her phone, her head tilting slightly. "Did she just—" Marcus nodded, his jaw tightening. "Yup." Claire reached the galley, dumping her tray onto the counter with a clatter. Jake looked up, startled. "What's up?" She jerked her head toward first class, her voice a hissed whisper. "Those two, acting like they own the place." "I'm Not their damn servant? Jake frowned, confused. They're just asking for drinks, Claire. It's first class. She snorted, grabbing a bottle of water for herself and cracking it open. First class doesn't mean squat if you don't belong there. You see how they walked in? Like they're better than us. Jake shook his head, muttering something about overreacting, but Claire wasn't listening. She gulped the water, her mind racing. It wasn't just the request. It was the way Lena sat there, all polished and unbothered, typing away like she ran the world. The way Marcus leaned back, legs sprawled, like he'd flown the damn plane himself. It didn't add up. Not to her. Back in their seats, Lena set her phone down, her eyes meeting Marcus's. "She's ignoring us," she said, her voice low but steady. Marcus shrugged, forcing a chuckle. "Guess we're not her type." Lena's lips quirked, but there was a flicker in her gaze, a spark of something sharper. She'd felt this before, the subtle chill of being sized up and found wanting. She brushed it off, picking up her phone again, her fingers moving faster now. Marcus watched her, his own calm fraying at the edges. He'd seen that look on her face too many times, the one that said she was filing this away, waiting to see how it played out. The champagne sat warm in their glasses, untouched since the first sip. A quiet insult they couldn't quite call out yet. Claire paced the galley, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. She'd served senators, CEOs, even a washed-up rock star once, all without blinking. But this felt different. Personal. She couldn't pin it down, but it gnawed at her, a splinter under her skin. She grabbed a stack of napkins, fanning them out like a deck of cards, her hands busy while her mind churned. "Standard slipping," she muttered again, louder this time as if saying it twice made it truer. Jake rolled his eyes, turning to prep a tray for the next round. Claire didn't care. She'd been doing this job since he was in diapers, and she knew the rules of the sky better than anyone. First class was sacred, a privilege, not a free-for-all. And those two? They weren't part of the club, not in her book. The plane climbed higher, piercing the clouds, the cabin lights dimming as night settled over the Atlantic. Lena leaned her head against the window, the cold glass soothing her temple. She'd built Skylux from nothing, a scrappy startup born, in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, now a titan in the airline game. This flight was supposed to be a breather, a chance to recharge before the London deal locked in their next billion. Marcus reached over, squeezing her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "We're good," he said, his voice a anchor. She nodded, exhaling slow. They were good. They'd faced worse than a grumpy flight attendant. But the air felt thicker now, heavier with something unspoken. Claire's snub wasn't just rudeness. It was a signal, a flare shot across their bow, and neither of them could shake the feeling that it was only the start. Up front, Claire straightened her apron, smoothing the wrinkles with sharp, jerky motions. She'd play nice for now, keep her distance. But she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She grabbed a tray, loading it with drinks for the other passengers, her smile snapping back into place like a mask. As she stepped into the aisle, her eyes darted toward Lena and Marcus, a quick, calculating glance. They sat there sipping their stale champagne, oblivious to the storm brewing in her head. She'd serve who she damn well pleased, and they weren't on the list. Not tonight. The plane leveled off at 35,000 feet, the world below, swallowed by darkness, and Claire's resolve hardened. This was her domain, and she'd make sure they knew it. The hum of the Skylux jet stretched across the Atlantic, a steady drone beneath the clatter of trays and the rustle of passengers shifting in their seats. Lena Hayes tapped away at her phone, her brow furrowed as she dissected an email from her London contact, the glow of the screen casting sharp shadows across her face. Marcus leaned back beside her, his empty champagne flute dangling loosely in his hand, his eyes tracing the curve of the overhead bins. The cabin felt alive. A bubble of luxury soaring through the night, but a chill had settled between them since Claire's earlier snub. They'd brushed it off, chalking it up to a bad day for her, but the air carried a weight now, a silent promise of something brewing. Halfway through the flight, with the meal service winding down, Claire emerged from the galley, her navy skirt swishing with purpose. Her sneakers squeaked faintly as she strode down the aisle, her tray long gone, replaced by a clipboard clutched tight against her chest. Her gaze locked onto Lena and Marcus, a hunter zeroing in, and the shift in her posture sent a ripple through the cabin. She stopped dead beside their seats, her shadow falling over Lena's phone. "Excuse me," Claire said, her voice slicing through the hum, polite, but edged with a blade of doubt. "I need to see your tickets." Lena's fingers froze mid-tap, her head snapping up, surprise flashing in her dark eyes. Marcus straightened, his glass clinking against the armrest as he set it down. "Our tickets," Lena echoed, her tone calm, but laced with a question. Claire nodded, her lips pursing, into a thin line. Yes, both of them now. The words hung heavy, drawing curious glances from nearby passengers. A businessman in a pinstripe suit peering over his newspaper. A woman in a cashmere sweater pausing mid-sip of her wine. Marcus tilted his head, his grin gone, replaced by a tight-jawed stare. "We showed them when we boarded. What's this about?" Claire's eyes flicked between them, her clipboard a shield. "Standard procedure," she lied, her voice sharpening. "First class isn't for everyone. I need to verify you belong here." The cabin seemed to hold its breath, the accusation landing like a punch. Lena's composure held, but her grip on her phone tightened, knuckles whitening. She reached into her blazer pocket, pulling out the boarding pass with a slow, deliberate grace, her eyes never leaving Claire's. "Here," she said, handing it over, her voice steady as steel. Marcus followed, fishing his from his wallet, his movements clipped. Claire snatched them up, scanning the barcodes with a frown that deepened by the second. The passes were legit. Skylux's own system confirmed it, but her face twisted as if she'd bitten into something sour. "This says first class," she muttered, almost to herself, her tone dripping with disbelief. Lena nodded, unfazed. "Yes, that's correct." Claire's gaze darted back to her, then to Marcus, then to the tickets again, like she was trying to crack a code that refused to yield. The businessman coughed, lowering his paper, his brows raised. "The wine sipper," whispered to her seatmate, their heads tilting toward the scene. Claire handed the passes back, her fingers lingering as if reluctant to let go, her tight smile barely masking the storm behind her eyes. "Fine," she snapped, turning on her heel, her clipboard slapping against her thigh as she marched back, toward the galley. Lena tucked her pass away, her expression unreadable, but Marcus leaned closer, his voice a low growl. "She's got a problem with us. You heard that, right? Not for everyone?" Lena nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I heard. She's testing us." Marcus cracked his knuckles, his eyes tracking Claire's retreat. "She's done testing. We shut that down." Lena exhaled, a faint smirk tugging at her mouth. "For now." They settled back, the tension easing like a wave pulling away from shore. The businessman returned to his paper, the whispers faded, and the cabin resumed its rhythm. Lena thought, they'd won. A small victory, sure, but a win nonetheless. Claire had backed off, tail between her legs, and that was enough. Or so it seemed. But Claire wasn't done. In the galley, hidden behind a curtain of stainless steel and coffee pots, she slammed her clipboard onto the counter, her breath ragged. Jake, the wiry attendant, jumped, spilling a stack of sugar packets. "Jesus. Claire, what's your deal?" She ignored him, grabbing the radio handset, her fingers trembling with a mix of rage and triumph. "Captain, this is Donovan," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. "We've got a situation up front. 2 passengers in first class, row 2. They're disruptive, loud, argumentative, making a scene." Jake's jaw dropped, his hands freezing mid-stack. "What? They didn't—" Claire shot him a glare that could have melted steel, silencing him. "I asked for their tickets, and they got hostile," she continued, spinning the lie with ease. "I don't trust them up there. Could be a safety issue." The captain's voice crackled back, gruff and tired. "You sure about this, Donovan?" Claire's lips curled, a predator's smile. "Positive. We need to handle it before it escalates." The radio clicked off, and Claire set it down, her chest heaving. Jake stared, his mouth working soundlessly. "That's not what happened," he finally managed, his voice small. Claire rounded on him, her eyes blazing. "You saw how they acted, arrogant, like they own the damn plane. I'm not letting them get away with it." Jake shook his head, turning back to his packets, muttering under his breath. Claire didn't care. She'd planted the seed, and that was all that mattered. The captain wouldn't check the story. Not mid-flight, not with a packed plane to manage. She leaned against the counter, her pulse slowing, a quiet satisfaction settling in. They'd humiliated her, called her out in front of everyone, and now they'd pay. She'd make sure of it. Back in first class, Lena scrolled through her emails, again her mind half on Claire's retreat. "She's embarrassed," she said softly, glancing at Marcus. "That's why she walked away." Marcus nodded, his tension easing. "Good. Let her stew." They clinked their empty glasses, a silent toast to standing their ground. The cabin lights dimmed further, the night stretching endless outside, and for a moment, it felt like they'd dodged a bullet. But Claire's lie was a live wire, sparking, in the dark, and they had no idea it was already coiling around them. What do you think, folks? Comment number 1 if you're raging at Claire's blatant prejudice, or number 2 if you think Lena and Marcus should have pushed back harder. Hit that like button if you're hooked on this fight for justice, and subscribe to catch every twist coming your way. So what's next? How far will Claire take this vendetta now that she's roped the captain into her game? Will her lie unravel, or will it tighten the noose around Lena and Marcus before they even see it coming? Stick around, things are about to get wilder than you can imagine. The Skylux jet sliced through the night, the cabin a cocoon of muted lights and soft murmurs as the Atlantic rolled beneath them, invisible in the dark. Lena Hayes sat by the window, her phone resting on her lap, the glow dimmed as she rubbed her temple with one hand. The sting of Claire's earlier accusation lingered, a bruise on her pride, but she'd kept her cool, and that felt like a win. Beside her, Marcus stretched his legs, his suit jacket draped over the armrest, his fingers drumming a slow rhythm on his knee. The captain's voice had crackled over the intercom minutes ago, dismissing Claire's complaint after Lena flashed their booking confirmation on her screen, a crisp email from Skylux's own system. "No issue here," the captain had grunted, and that was that. Claire had slunk back to the galley, her tail between her legs, and the tension in first class had dissolved like mist. Lena allowed herself a small breath of relief, her shoulders loosening. Marcus caught her eye, his grin creeping back. "Told you she'd back off," he said, his voice low and smug. Lena smirked, nodding. "For now." Claire reappeared soon after, her navy apron crisp despite the hours aloft, her bun still tight as a drum. She carried a tray of drinks, her steps measured, her face a mask of forced civility. The businessman in 1C got his scotch with a nod. The woman in pearls at 3B her Chardonnay with a murmured thanks. When she reached Lena and Marcus, she paused, her tray tilting slightly, her blue eyes flicking over them with a cold glint. "Drinks?" she asked, her tone flat, the word clipped like she'd bitten it off. Marcus raised a brow, leaning forward. "Yeah, 2 champagnes, like before." Claire's lips twitched, a smile so tight it could have cracked glass, and she turned to pour, her movement stiff. Lena watched her, a prickle of unease crawling up her spine. Something was off, but she couldn't pin it down. Claire handed Marcus his flute first, her fingers steady, then turned to Lena. The tray shifted, just a hair, as she extended the glass. Then it happened. Claire's hand jerked, a sudden, sharp motion, and a cascade of scalding coffee poured from a pot on the tray, splashing across Lena's lap. The heat seared through her slacks, a white-hot shock that yanked a gasp from her throat. She jolted upright, her phone clattering to the floor, her hands flying to the soaked fabric as pain bloomed across her thighs. Marcus lunged forward, his glass tumbling, champagne pooling on the carpet. "What the hell?" he barked, his voice cutting through the cabin. Claire stepped back, her tray clattering as she clutched it, her eyes wide with feigned shock. "Oh, my God, I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice pitching high, a performance so blatant it stank of rehearsal. "It slipped. I didn't mean..." She fumbled with a napkin, dabbing at the air like it'd fix anything, her lips trembling with a barely hidden smirk. Passengers turned, heads craning, eyes wide with a mix of shock and curiosity. The businessman dropped his paper, his scotch sloshing. The pearl-wearing woman gasped, her hand fluttering to her chest. Lena gritted her teeth, the burn pulsing under her skin, her blazer sleeve damp as she swiped at the mess. "Slipped?" she hissed, her voice low but sharp enough to cut. Claire blinked, all innocence, her hands wringing the napkin. It was an accident. These trays, they're tricky sometimes. Marcus stood towering over her, his fists clenched at his sides. "Bullshit. You did that on purpose." Claire flinched, her mask slipping for a split second, that smirk flickering before she buried it. "Sir, I'd never," she started, but Marcus cut her off, his voice booming. "Don't play dumb. We saw you." The cabin buzzed, whispers swelling into a low roar. A teenage girl in 4A pulled out her phone, filming with a sly grin. An older man in a tweed jacket muttered to his wife, "Some people can't handle first class." Lena's composure cracked, her calm fracturing under the weight of the pain and the humiliation. She snatched a towel from the seat pocket, pressing it to her lap, the coffee soaking through, staining her hands. "This isn't over," she said, her gaze locking onto Claire's, a promise carved into every syllable. Claire met her stare, unflinching, then turned away, her tray rattling as she retreated down the aisle. Lena's breath came fast, her pulse hammering. She'd faced worse than this, built a fortune from nothing, but the raw spite in Claire's eyes hit different. It wasn't just clumsiness. It was a jab, a retaliation for daring to stand their ground. Marcus sank back into his seat, his jaw tight, his eyes tracking Claire's exit. "She's pissed we called her out," he said, his voice a growl. Lena nodded, wincing as she shifted, the burn still throbbing. "She thinks she can push us around. She's wrong." She reached for her phone, wiping it dry with her sleeve, her mind already spinning. They owned this airline, every rivet, every seat. And this was personal now. Marcus grabbed the call button, jabbing it hard. "We're getting the captain again. She doesn't get to pull this and walk away." Lena's fingers hovered over her screen, a text half-typed to her COO. "Let's see how far she takes it," she murmured, her voice steadying, a plan forming behind her eyes. They'd won round one, forced Claire to back down, and now they'd win this too. Or so they thought. Claire reached the galley, her tray slamming onto the counter with a clang that made Jake jump again. He stared, his wiry frame tensing. "What was that?" he asked, his voice low, cautious. Claire spun on him, her face flushed, her bun fraying at the edges. "An accident," she snapped, her hands shaking as she grabbed a rag, wiping non-existent spills. "They're overreacting, making a scene, typical." Jake frowned, his eyes darting toward first class. "You dumped coffee on her, Claire. That's not..." She cut him off, her voice a whip. "They're troublemakers. You saw how they acted earlier, all high and mighty. They don't belong up there." Jake shook his head, turning back to his prep, his silence a rebuke she ignored. She paced the narrow space, her sneakers squeaking, her mind a whirlwind. They'd humiliated her, made her look small in front of everyone, and now they'd pay twice over. The coffee wasn't planned, not exactly, but it felt right. A hot splash of justice in her book. She'd played it off, all apologies and wide eyes, and most of the cabin bought it. Accidents happened, right? She smirked to herself, the thrill of it buzzing under her skin. They thought they'd won, sitting there smug after the captain shut her down, but this was her turf. She'd served kings and crooks, and these two, they were nothing. She tossed the rag aside, her pulse slowing, a new idea flickering to life. She wasn't done yet, not by a damn sight. Back in first class, Lena dabbed at her lap, the towel sopping up the last of the coffee, her slacks ruined but her resolve hardening. Marcus pressed the call button again, his impatience crackling. "She's not getting away with this," he said, his voice a low rumble. Lena nodded, her fingers resuming their dance across her phone. "She won't. We'll handle it." The captain's voice would come soon, she was sure, and Claire would squirm again. They'd toast to that, to standing firm, to proving they belonged. The burn still stung, a dull ache under her skin, but it fueled her now. They'd faced racism before, subtle digs, sidelong glances, but this was bold, blatant, and they'd crush it. The cabin settled, the whispers fading, the teenage girl pocketing her phone. Lena leaned back, her eyes narrowing. Victory tasted sweet, even with coffee stains. But Claire's smirk lingered in her mind. A shadow they couldn't see, growing darker. The Skylux jet hummed steady over the Atlantic, the cabin lights casting a faint amber glow across the rows of seats. The night outside, a black void swallowing the world below. Lena Hayes sat rigid in her first-class seat, the damp towel crumpled. In her lap, the coffee stain a dark smear across her slacks. The burn on her thighs had dulled to a throbbing ache, but her mind was razor-sharp, replaying Claire's smirk, the way it lingered like a taunt. Marcus pressed the call button again, his finger jabbing with a force that betrayed his calm exterior. His suit jacket still slung over the armrest, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The captain's dismissal of Claire's earlier lie had felt like a win, a clean cut through her nonsense. But the coffee spill had shifted the ground beneath them. They'd demanded answers, and now they waited, the air thick with anticipation. Lena's phone buzzed, a text from her COO flashing across the screen. Board's on alert. Checking flight logs now. She exhaled, a flicker of hope steadying her. They owned this airline. Claire didn't know that yet, and soon she'd feel the weight of it. The intercom crackled, the captain's voice cutting through the cabin, gruff and worn like an old leather boot. Folks, this is Captain Reynolds. We've had a report of a disturbance in first class. Passengers in 2A and 2B. You're being relocated to economy for the remainder of the flight. Safety comes first. The words hit like a brick through glass, shattering the fragile victory Lena and Marcus had clung to. Lena's head snapped, up, her eyes wide, disbelief carving lines into her face. Marcus froze, his hand hovering over the call button, his jaw dropping. "What the hell?" he muttered, his voice a low rumble. Passengers turned, necks craning, the businessman in 1C, folding his paper with a huff, the woman in pearls clutching her Chardonnay tighter. The teenage girl in 4A smirked, her phone already out, filming the fallout. Lena's pulse hammered, her fingers curling into fists. "Safety?" she hissed, her voice barely audible. "She dumped coffee on me and we're the problem?" Claire emerged from the galley, her navy apron pristine, her bun still taut despite the hours aloft. She strode toward them, her sneakers silent now, her face a mask of smug authority. "You heard the captain," she said, her tone clipped, her blue eyes glinting with triumph. "Grab your things and move, now." Marcus stood, his frame filling the aisle, his voice rising. "This is bullshit. You lied to him, didn't you?" Claire didn't flinch, her arms crossing tight across her chest. "I don't make the calls. He does. Take it up with him later." Lena rose beside Marcus, her damp slacks clinging to her legs, her blazer sleeves stained brown. "We're not moving until he explains this himself," she said, her voice steady but edged with steel. Claire's lips twitched, a smirk breaking through. "You don't get a choice. Move, or security handles it when we land." The standoff stretched, the cabin buzzing with whispers, eyes darting between them like spectators at a cage fight. Lena's mind raced. Claire had twisted the coffee spill, spun it into a threat, and the captain had swallowed it whole. She grabbed her briefcase, her movements sharp, and Marcus slung his duffel over his shoulder, his glare boring into Claire. "This isn't over," he growled, stepping into the aisle. Lena followed, her chin high, her heels clicking with defiance. They moved toward economy, Claire trailing close, her presence a shadow they couldn't shake. The first-class passengers watched, some with pity, others with disdain. The tweed-jacketed man muttering, "Should have stayed quiet." Lena's jaw tightened, but she kept walking, her resolve of fire stoked hotter with every step. Economy was a different beast. Cramped seats, stale air, the hum of restless bodies packed tight. Lena slid into a middle seat near row 20, Marcus taking the aisle beside her, his knees jammed against the seat back ahead. The shift was stark, a downgrade from plush leather to worn fabric, but it was the stairs that hit harder. Passengers gawked, their eyes narrowing, assumptions blooming in the silence. A woman with a toddler clutched her bag tighter. A guy in a hoodie leaned away, his lip curling. "Troublemakers," someone whispered, the word slithering through the rows. Lena's hands clenched her briefcase, her nails digging into the leather. Marcus scanned the cabin, his fists balled, his voice low. "They think we're the bad guys now." Lena nodded, her gaze fixed ahead. Claire flipped the script. She's good at this. Claire lingered near the galley curtain, her arms still crossed, her smirk a quiet victory lap. She'd won this round, pushed them out, turned the system against them, and the thrill of it buzzed under her skin. She'd fed the captain a story about Lena threatening her after the coffee spill. A tearful tale of fear for her safety, and he'd bitten, too tired or too lazy to dig deeper. She watched them settle into economy, their heads high but their seats low, and satisfaction curled in her gut. They'd dared to challenge her, and now they'd pay. She turned back to the galley, her sneakers squeaking faintly, already plotting her next move. Lena pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, the coffee stain on her sleeve. A grim reminder. She fired off a text to her COO. "Captain's in on it. Moved us to economy. Dig into Claire Donovan. Everything." Marcus leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "We'll sue them into the ground when we land. They don't know who they're messing with." Lena's lips quirked, a faint spark of defiance. They'll know soon enough. She'd built Skylux from a dream into a titan, and no flight attendant was dismantling that. The COO's reply buzzed back. "On it. Ground teams prepping a full report." Lena exhaled, a plan taking shape. They'd ride this out. Let Claire think she'd won, then hit back hard. But the system wasn't done turning. As Lena pocketed her phone, a burly passenger across the aisle, a thick-necked man in a flannel shirt, his beard patchy and his eyes bloodshot, leaned over, his breath sour with beer. "Hey," he slurred, his voice loud enough to draw heads. "Know your place, huh? First class ain't for you." Marcus stiffened, his fists unclenching slow, his gaze locking onto the man. "Say that again," he said, his tone a warning. "Shot." The man sneered, leaning closer, his elbow jabbing into Marcus's space. "You heard me. Should have stayed back here where you fit." Lena's hand shot to Marcus's arm, her grip tight, holding him back. "Not worth it," she murmured, her eyes flicking to Claire, who watched from the galley, her nod subtle but clear, egging the man on. The cabin tensed, a ripple of unease spreading. A woman in a floral scarf gasped, clutching her purse, while a kid in a baseball cap peeked over his seat, wide-eyed. Marcus's chest heaved, his restraint fraying, but Lena's hold kept him grounded. The burly man shoved Marcus's shoulder, a hard push that rocked him against the seat, his duffel sliding to the floor. "Back off," Marcus snapped, his voice a thunderclap, his hand twitching toward the man's wrist. Lena's pulse spiked, her mind screaming to de-escalate, but the man's sneer widened, his shove turning into a threat. "Make me," he spat, his fist cocking back. Claire's smirk grew, her silhouette a ghost in the galley, her silent approval a match to gasoline. Lena's breath caught, her phone buzzing again, another update from the COO, but she ignored it, her focus split between Marcus and the brewing fight. They'd been pushed out, humiliated, and now this. The system had turned, not just Claire, but the captain, the passengers, the whole damn plane aligning against them. She whispered to Marcus, her voice urgent. "We've got this. Bigger fish, later." He nodded, his fist uncurling, but the burly man lunged again, his bulk a wall of menace. Lena's heart slammed against her ribs. Claire had lit the fuse, and they were trapped in the blast zone. The Skylux jet droned through the night, its engines a low growl beneath the rising chaos in economy class, the air thick with sweat and simmering rage. Lena Hayes sat wedged in her middle seat, her damp slacks sticking to her thighs. The coffee burned a dull pulse she barely noticed now. Her briefcase rested on her lap, a lifeline she clutched tight, her fingers tracing its edges as she fought to keep her breathing steady. Marcus loomed beside her in the aisle seat, his broad frame coiled like a spring, his eyes locked on the burly man across the row, whose shove still echoed in the tension between them. The cabin lights flickered faintly, casting jagged shadows. Over the passengers, their faces a gallery of curiosity and contempt. Claire's nod from the galley had lit a spark, and now it was spreading, a fire Lena and Marcus couldn't outrun. The burly man, his flannel shirt stretched tight over his gut, leaned back with a sneer, his bloodshot eyes glinting. "Told you," he slurred, loud enough for the rows around to hear. "First class ain't your spot." His voice was a match, and the crowd caught flame. A wiry guy in a faded hoodie 2 seats back stood, his fists balled, his voice cracking with venom. "Go back to coach where you belong," he shouted, his words slicing through the hum. A woman with a pinched face and a floral scarf nodded, her lips curling as she clutched her purse like a shield. "They don't fit up there," she muttered, her whisper loud in the cramped space. Lena's jaw tightened, her gaze flicking to Marcus, who shifted, his knuckles whitening. "Stay cool," she murmured, her hand brushing his arm, but the air was electric now, charged with a hate she knew too well. The burly man lumbered to his feet, his bulk swaying as he pointed a thick finger at Marcus. "You gonna make me shut up, huh?" he taunted, stepping closer, his beer breath fouling the air. Marcus rose, his height dwarfing the man, his voice a low thunder. "Back off, now!" The standoff shattered as the hoodie guy lunged, shoving past a kid in a baseball cap to grab Marcus's shoulder, yanking him back. "Sit down, punk," he spat, his nails digging in. The burly man swung, a wild haymaker that grazed Marcus's jaw, rocking him against the seat. Lena sprang up, her briefcase thudding to the floor, her voice cutting through the din. "Stop it," she yelled, shoving between them, her heels skidding on the carpet. Passengers surged, a wave of bodies closing in, their shouts blending into a roar. "Get 'em out," a voice cried. "They don't belong," another echoed. Crumpled napkins flew, pelting Lena's back, sticking to her stained blazer, a barrage of petty hate. Marcus swung back, his fist clipping the burly man's chin, sending him staggering, but the mob swelled, hands clawing, voices rising. Lena ducked a flying water bottle, her pulse hammering, her eyes darting to the galley where Claire stood, her arms crossed, her smirk a beacon in the chaos. She wasn't moving, wasn't stopping it, just watching. Her nod a silent command, fueling the frenzy. Marcus shielded Lena, his arm a barricade as he pushed the hoodie guy back, his growl lost in the clamor. "Enough!" he bellowed. But the crowd pressed tighter, a woman in a denim jacket snatching Lena's arm, her grip bruising. "You think you're special?" she hissed, her breath hot against Lena's ear. Lena twisted free, her elbow jabbing back, her mind racing. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, another text from her COO. "Board's got footage, we're on it." She clung to that, a lifeline in the storm, thinking help was close. They just had to hold on. Then the tide turned brutal. The burly man, blood trickling from his lip, roared and charged, slamming Marcus into the seatback, the crack of plastic snapping under the force. The hoodie guy grabbed Lena's briefcase, ripping it from the floor, his grin feral as he flipped it open. Papers spilled, fluttering like wounded birds, but his eyes locked on the laptop inside. A sleek prototype, its casing a matte black marvel worth millions, the heart of their next deal. "What's this, huh?" he jeered, holding it high. Lena lunged, her voice raw. "Put it down." He laughed, a jagged sound, and smashed it against the tray table, the screen shattering, shards skittering across the aisle. The crowd cheered, a sick chorus as he stomped it, the crunch of metal and glass a death knell to their empire's edge. Lena's breath stopped, her hands trembling as she stared at the wreckage, her vision tunneling. Marcus roared, shoving the burly man off, his fist cocked, but the mob closed ranks, pinning him back. "You're done," the denim woman shrieked, her nails raking Lena's wrist. Napkins rained harder, a blizzard of spite, sticking to Lena's hair, her face, her pride, Claire's grin widened from the galley, her silhouette a ghost of triumph, her silent encouragement a poison seeping through the cabin. The kid in the baseball cap peeked over, his eyes wide, but no one helped. No one dared. Lena's phone buzzed again, ignored, her world narrowing to the broken laptop, its jagged edges a mirror to the hate swallowing them whole. Marcus fought to his feet, blood smearing his jaw, his voice a ragged bellow. "You're gonna regret this." The burly man laughed, wiping his lip, his bulk a wall of menace. "Try it, tough guy." Lena grabbed Marcus's arm, pulling him back, her whisper fierce. "We've got proof coming. Let them dig their hole." He nodded, his chest heaving, but the mob didn't relent, their taunts a chorus of "get out" and "know your place." The laptop lay in pieces, a $1 million dream crushed under their boots, and Lena's heart sank with it. They'd endured, thinking the board's intervention would save them, but this was a gut punch they hadn't seen coming. Claire's smirk burned into her, a promise of more to come, and Lena knew they were deeper in the fire now than ever. Hey, folks, what's your take? Comment number 1 if you're boiling mad at this racist mob tearing into Lena and Marcus, or number 2 if you think Claire's the real puppet master here. Drop a like if you're rooting for them to turn this mess around, and hit subscribe to see how they fight back against this insanity. They've lost a fortune in that laptop. Can they claw their way out? Or is Claire's next move gonna bury them deeper? So, what's brewing now? Will Lena's livestream flip this chaos into their favor? Or has Claire already stacked the deck too high for them to climb? Buckle up, the storm's just getting started. The Skylux jet trembled faintly as it cut through the night sky, the cabin a pressure cooker of hostility, the air in economy class rancid with sweat and spilled beer. Lena Hayes crouched low in her middle seat, her stained blazer clinging to her shoulders, her hands trembling as she scooped up shards of her shattered laptop, its broken screen glinting like a fractured dream under the dim lights. The prototype, worth millions, the key to their London deal, lay in ruins, stomped to pieces by a racist mob egged on by Claire's silent smirk from the galley. Marcus towered beside her, blood crusting along his jaw from the burly man's punch, his suit jacket torn at the sleeve, his fists clenched as he glared at the crowd circling them. The burly man in flannel loomed close, his sneer a jagged slash across his face, while the wiry guy in the hoodie hovered behind, his eyes wild with spite. Napkins littered the floor, stuck to Lena's hair, a humiliating crown she couldn't shake off. The mob's taunts echoed. "Get out! You don't belong!" A wall of sound pressing in, suffocating. Lena's pulse thundered, her breath shallow, but her mind snapped into focus, a steel trap closing around a plan. She dropped the laptop shards, her fingers brushing Marcus's arm, her whisper sharp. "We're not taking this lying down." He nodded, his eyes flicking to the burly man, who swayed closer, his fist cocked for another swing. Marcus moved, fast, lunging forward, his hands clamping onto the man's wrists, twisting hard until the guy yelped, his bulk crumpling to his knees. "Apologize," Marcus growled, his voice a blade, his grip unrelenting. The man sputtered, his face red, beer breath hissing out. "Sorry, all right, let go." Marcus shoved him back, the guy sprawling across the aisle, the crowd parting with gasps and murmurs. The hoodie guy froze, his bravado faltering, and the denim woman shrank into her seat, her nails no longer a threat. Lena seized the moment, yanking her phone from her pocket, her stained sleeve brushing the screen as she swiped it alive. Her thumbs flew, opening the live stream app, her COO's last text, "Board's got footage." A spark igniting her resolve. She hit record, angling the camera to catch the chaos. Marcus standing tall, the burly man sprawled, the mob's stunned faces, and Claire's silhouette lurking near the galley, her smirk faltering as the lens found her. "This is Lena Hayes," she said, her voice steady, cutting through the din, broadcasting to thousands online. "We're on Skylux Airlines, Flight 17 from JFK to London, and this is what's happening. Refused service, attacked, our property destroyed, all because of who we are. And that woman?" She zoomed in on Claire, whose eyes widened, her arms dropping. "She's behind it. Watch this." The cabin fell silent, passengers gaping, The teenage girl in 4A lowering. Her phone, her smirk gone. The live stream exploded, comments flooding in, outraged emojis, all caps rants, hashtags spiking as viewers caught Claire's face, her name trending in seconds. Marcus leaned into frame, his jaw bloodied but his voice firm. "We didn't start this. They did. And we're not backing down." Lena panned to the laptop wreckage, her voice rising. This was a prototype, millions in the making, smashed by a mob she encouraged. This isn't just us. It's systemic. The burly man scrambled to his feet, his glare venomous. But the crowd hesitated, shame creeping into their eyes as the guy, world watched. The floral scarf woman clutched her purse tighter, her lips trembling, while the kid in the baseball cap sank lower, his cap shadowing his face. Lena's phone buzzed, notifications piling up, the view count soaring past 10,000, then 20. Claire bolted from the galley, her sneakers pounding the carpet as she stormed toward the cockpit, her bun unraveling, strands flying wild. She burst in, the door slamming behind her, her voice a frantic hiss to the captain. "They're filming, calling me out. You've got to stop them." Captain Reynolds, a grizzled man with salt and pepper hair, spun in his seat, his brow furrowing. "What's this about, Donovan?" She pointed back, her hand shaking. "They're disruptive, like I said. Now they're making a scene online. Hundreds. Watching. Do something!" He grabbed his radio, his voice barking over the intercom. "Passengers in economy, cut that recording, now!" But Lena kept rolling, her lens steady, her words a defiant thread. "They can't silence this. Truth's out." The captain stormed from the cockpit, his boots thumping, his face a mask of irritation as he reached them. "Turn it off," he snapped, towering over Lena. She met his gaze, unflinching. "No." He hesitated, the live stream's glare a spotlight he couldn't escape, then turned on Claire, his voice a growl. "You said they threatened you. This looks like your mess." Claire's face paled, her smirk gone, her hands twisting her apron. "They're lying, sir, exaggerating." But the captain's eyes narrowed, the footage a noose tightening around her. He grabbed her arm, pulling her aside, his voice low but furious. "You're done stirring this pot. Back to first class, both of you," he said to Lena and Marcus, his tone grudging. "No more trouble." Lena stopped the stream, pocketing her phone, her breath steadying as Marcus grabbed his duffel. They marched back to 2A and 2B, the cabin parting like a reluctant sea, whispers trailing them. Some awed, some bitter. Claire followed, her head low, her defeat a bitter pill she choked on. Lena sank into her seat, her stained slacks cold against, her skin, her blazer a crumpled mess, but triumph burned in her chest. Marcus settled beside her, wiping blood from his jaw, his grin faint, but real. "We flipped it," he said, his voice rough. Lena nodded, her eyes glinting. "They're scared now. Good." The businessman in 1C nodded subtly, respect flickering in his gaze, while the pearl-wearing woman sipped her Chardonnay, her silence a concession. The teenage girl pocketed her phone, her smirk replaced by a wary glance. Lena's phone buzzed, her COO. "Video's viral, boards livid, Claire's toast." They clinked their empty flutes, a silent toast to a win hard fought, their seats reclaimed, the mob shamed into silence. Victory tasted sharp, a blade they'd wielded well. But Claire wasn't finished. In the galley, her apron twisted in her fists, her face flushed with rage as the captain's words echoed. Her mess, her fault. She'd been humiliated again, dragged back by a live stream she couldn't stop, her name a curse trending online. She paced, her sneakers squeaking, her mind a storm of vengeance. They'd won this round, sure, but she'd hit harder. She slipped, a hand into her pocket, pulling out a crumpled $50 bill, her fingers trembling as she scanned the cabin. Her eyes landed on a scrawny passenger in economy, a twitchy guy in a gray cap, his fingers drumming nervously on his tray. She sidled up, her voice a whisper, her smirk reborn. "Plant this in his bag," she said, slipping him a tiny bag of white powder, cocaine, along with the cash. "They'll pay for this, trust me." The guy hesitated, his eyes darting. but the 50 won him over. He nodded, pocketing the drugs, his steps casual as he moved toward first class, Marcus's duffel in his sights. Claire retreated to the galley, her pulse slowing, satisfaction curling in her gut. They thought they'd crushed her, sitting smug in their reclaimed seats. But this was checkmate. She'd watched them fight, seen their strength, and now she'd turn it against them. The plane droned on, London nearing, and Claire's trap snapped shut, unseen. A venomous bite they'd never see coming. The Skylux jet sliced through the final stretch of night, the cabin lights flickering as London's glow crept into view beyond the windows, a faint shimmer against the dark. Lena Hayes sat in her reclaimed first-class seat, 2A, her stained blazer, draped over her lap, her damp slacks cold against her thighs. The burn from the coffee had faded to a dull ache, but her mind buzzed with the afterglow of their live-stream victory, the mob's silence a trophy she savored. Marcus slumped beside her in 2B, his torn suit jacket slung over the armrest, blood crusting along his jaw from the earlier brawl. His duffel rested at his feet, unzipped, its contents spilling slightly. A pen, a crumpled tie, a glimpse of normalcy amid the chaos. The cabin had settled, the hum of the engines a steady pulse, passengers dozing or staring blankly at screens. Lena's phone buzzed, her COO's text lighting the screen. Videos at 50,000 views, Claire's name's mud. She smirked, leaning toward Marcus. "We've got her," she whispered, her voice a threat of triumph. He nodded, his grin faint but fierce. "She's done." The descent began, the plane tilting gently, the captain's voice crackling over the intercom. "Folks, we're 20 minutes out from Heathrow. Prepare for landing." Lena stretched, her spine popping, her eyes drifting to the window where clouds parted like a curtain. They'd turned the tide, shamed the mob, exposed Claire, reclaimed their seats. And now London loomed, their deal within reach despite the wrecked laptop. Marcus rubbed his neck, his tension easing. "We'll rebuild the prototype. They can't stop us." Lena's lips quirked, her confidence a shield. They never could. The businessman in 1C flipped a page in his paper, his nod subtle but approving, while the pearl-wearing woman sipped her Chardonnay, her gaze averted. The teenage girl in 4A slept, her phone dark, the cabin a fragile truce. Then, the trap sprang. Claire emerged from the galley, her navy apron crisp, her bun retied with ruthless precision, her sneakers silent as she moved toward a cluster of crew near the front. She whispered to a stocky security officer, his badge glinting under the lights, her finger jabbing toward Lena and Marcus. The officer nodded, his jaw tight, and strode down the aisle, 2 more guards trailing, their boots thumping a grim rhythm. Passengers stirred, heads turning, the air thickening with unease. The officer stopped at 2B, his shadow swallowing Marcus. "Sir, we need to check your bag," he said, his voice flat, his hand hovering near his belt. Marcus blinked, sitting up. "What for?" The officer didn't answer, bending to grab the duffel, his gloved hands rifling through it with mechanical efficiency. Lena's pulse spiked, her eyes narrowing. "What's going on?" she demanded, her voice sharp. The officer paused, his fingers closing around a small plastic bag, a flash of white powder tumbling out, stark against the black fabric of the duffel. Cocaine. The cabin gasped, a collective inhale that sucked the air dry. Claire stepped forward, her tray abandoned, her gasp a theatrical masterpiece. "I knew they were trouble," she cried, her voice pitching high, her hands flying to her chest. "Drugs in first class. Unbelievable." The officer held the bag aloft, his glare locking onto Marcus. "This yours?" Marcus's jaw dropped, his hands rising. "Hell no. That's not mine." Lena shot to her feet, her blazer falling, her voice a whip. "You planted that. We've been here the whole time." But the passengers turned, their truth shattering, eyes hardening with suspicion. The businessman folded his paper, his nod gone, replaced by a scowl. The pearl woman clutched her glass, whispering to her seatmate, "Disgraceful." The officer ignored Lena, snapping cuffs onto Marcus's wrists, the metal clicking shut with a cold finality. "You're detained until we land. he said, yanking Marcus up. Lena grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling as she swiped it on. But the second guard shoved her back, his palm heavy against her shoulder. "You too, ma'am. Step aside." She stumbled, her heels catching, her voice rising. "This is insane. We own this airline. Check the records." The guard snorted, cuffing her wrists, her briefcase thudding to the floor. "Tell it to the cops on the ground." The third guard hauled them toward the galley, Marcus's duffel dangling from his grip. The cocaine bag, a glaring lie swinging, in plain sight. Passengers jeered, their voices a chorus of hate. "Should have known. First class my ass." The mob's venom reborn, sharper now, fueled by Claire's script. Claire watched from the galley entrance, her arms crossed, her smirk a razor's edge slicing through the chaos. She'd slipped the scrawny guy in the gray cap $50 in a baggie, a whisper in his ear turning him into her pawn, and he'd planted it clean during the descent chaos. The livestream had humiliated her, turned her into a trending villain, but this was her counterstrike, a masterstroke she'd savored as it unfolded. She'd seen Marcus's bag unattended, seen the chance, and taken it. Now they were cuffed, their pleas drowned by the crowd, and she stood untouchable, her victory a bitter wine she drank deep. The officer nodded to her, a silent thanks, and she turned away, her sneakers squeaking faintly, her mind already spinning the story she'd tell on landing. Lena's wrists chafed under the cuffs, her shoulders straining as the guards shoved her into the galley. Marcus beside her, his face a mask of fury. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, unreachable, but she knew it was her COO. Another update she couldn't see. The guards secured them to a metal bar, their boots scuffing the linoleum, their voices low. "Stay put. Cops'll sort this when we touch down." Marcus twisted, his cuffs clanking. "This is a setup. She did this, Claire." The officer shrugged, unmoved. "Prove it later." Lena's mind raced, her breath ragged. She'd exposed Claire, thought they'd won, but this was a gut punch to their empire. Her phone buzzed again, insistent, and dread coiled in her gut. She caught Marcus's eye, her whisper fierce. "They're hitting us hard now." The screen lit up in her pocket, the COO's text breaking through as a guard glanced away. "Boards. Frozen your accounts. Drug claims gone viral. Stocks tanking." Lena's heart sank. The words a sledgehammer to their world. Skylux, their creation, their legacy, was crumbling. The live stream's triumph flipped into a nightmare by Claire's lie. Marcus's jaw tightened, his voice a growl. "They're buying it. All of them." Lena nodded, her resolve fraying, but unbroken. "We'll fight this. We have to." The guard stepped back, the galley curtain swaying, Claire's silhouette a ghost beyond it, her smirk a promise of more pain. The plane dipped, landing gear rumbling, London minutes away, and the weight of their isolation crushed down, cuffed, vilified, their empire teetering on a lie they couldn't yet unravel. Claire slipped back to the galley, her apron smoothed, her bun tight again, her pulse steadying as the plane taxied toward the gate. She'd turned their win into ash, the cocaine a perfect dagger, and the board's panic was her bonus. She'd watched Lena's poise, Marcus's strength, and twisted it against them, her revenge a symphony she'd conducted flawlessly. Passengers craned for a last look, their jeers a fading echo as the jet slowed, the cabin lights brightening. Claire grabbed a tray, her hands steady, her mind racing ahead. They'd scream innocence, sure, but who'd believe them now? She'd buried them deep, and she wasn't done digging. The Skylux jet shuddered as it taxied toward Heathrow's gate, the cabin lights flaring bright, illuminating the galley where Lena Hayes and Marcus Hayes sat cuffed to a metal bar, their wrists raw against the steel. Lena's stained blazer hung loose on her shoulders, her damp slacks clinging to her thighs, the coffee burn a distant memory beneath the fresh ache of betrayal. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, unreachable, its screen a silent scream of their empire's collapse. Accounts, frozen, stocks tanking, all sparked by Claire's cocaine lie. Marcus shifted beside her, his torn suit jacket bunched around his elbows, blood crusting his jaw from the mob's earlier blows, his duffel still dangling from a guard's grip. The planted drugs a glaring accusation, The galley curtain swayed, the hum of passengers disembarking a dull roar beyond it, their jeers fading into the night. Lena's breath hitched, her mind racing. Claire had flipped their live stream win into this nightmare, and now they were trapped, caged in their own airline. The stocky security officer loomed over them, his badge glinting, his gloved hands flexing as he cracked his knuckles, a predator sizing up prey. 2 more guards flanked him, their boots scuffing the linoleum, their faces blank but their eyes hard. "You resisted," the officer said, his voice a flat lie, his fist already curling. Marcus snorted, his cuffs clanking as he straightened. "Resisted? You cuffed us before we could blink." The officer's lip twitched, a flicker of irritation, and he swung, a meaty fist slamming into Marcus's gut, doubling him over with a grunt. Lena lunged, her cuffs jerking her back, her voice raw. "Stop it!" The second guard grabbed her shoulders, shoving her against the wall, her head cracking against the metal panel, a sharp pain blooming behind her eyes. The third guard kicked Marcus's legs out, sending him crashing to his knees, blood dripping, fresh from his nose as the officer's boot connected with his ribs, a sickening thud echoing in the tight space. Claire stepped closer, her navy apron pristine, her bun tight, her smirk a cruel crescent as she leaned against the galley counter. "Teach them a lesson," she said, her voice a venomous whisper, her blue eyes glinting with glee. The officer nodded, his fist hammering Marcus's jaw, snapping his head back, while the second guard twisted Lena's arm, her wrist screaming under the strain. She gasped, her vision swimming, but her mind clawed for control. They'd lost. The laptop, their seats, their freedom. Claire had turned the plane into a battlefield, and now their bodies were the casualties. Marcus groaned, blood pooling on the floor, his defiance a flicker beneath the blows, but Lena's resolve hardened, a steel core forging in the chaos. She had 1 shot left, and she'd take it. Her free hand fumbled, slipping into her pocket, her fingers brushing her cracked phone, the screen spiderwebbed from the mob's attack. She yanked it out, her thumb swiping blindly, the cuffs biting as she stretched. The guards didn't notice, too busy pummeling Marcus, his grunts a rhythm of pain. Lena's heart pounded, her breath ragged. She'd hacked systems before. Built. Skylux from Code and Grit, and now she'd use it. She tapped the Wi-Fi settings, her fingers trembling, cracking the plane's network with a backdoor she'd installed years ago, a failsafe from their startup days. The signal flared, her screen lighting up, and she fired off a file, their ownership docs, a digital deed proving Skylux was theirs, to the captain's inbox. Her message a desperate plea. "We're the owners. Stop this." The officers. Fist froze mid-swing, Marcus's blood smearing his knuckles as the intercom crackled, Captain Reynolds' voice booming through. "Security! Stand down! Now!" The guards flinched, stepping back, their boots scuffling as Lena's phone clattered to the floor, its screen dark, but its mission done. Claire's smirk vanished, her face paling as the captain stormed in, his salt and pepper hair wild, his eyes blazing. He thrust his tablet at the officer, the ownership file glowing on the screen. "They own this damn airline. What the hell are you doing?" The officer stammered, his gloves slick with blood. "She said, they resisted." Reynolds cut him off, his voice a roar. "Donovan, you're fired. Get out." Claire's jaw dropped, her apron twisting in her fists, her victory crumbling to ash. The guards uncuffed Lena and Marcus, their hands shaking, apologies muttered under their breath. Lena staggered to her feet, her arm throbbing, her head pounding, but relief flooded her veins. Marcus rose, swaying, blood streaking his shirt, his grin faint but defiant. "Told you we'd flip it," he rasped, leaning on her. They limped, back to first class, the cabin empty now. Passengers gone, their seats a battered throne reclaimed. Lena's phone buzzed. Her COO. "Accounts unfrozen. Board's backtracking. You're clear." She exhaled, her body screaming but her spirit soaring. Claire slumped against the galley wall, her bun unraveling, her firing a public gut punch she couldn't dodge. The captain lingered, his face grim. "I'll handle this mess. You're safe now." Lena nodded, her voice steady. "We'd better be." They'd broken the trap, turned the system back, and justice felt close, until Claire's next move slithered in. She slipped her phone from her apron, her fingers trembling with rage as she fired off a text to a ground contact, a shadowy exec she'd cozied up to years ago. "Crash their empire," she typed, her smirk reborn, a venomous seed planted as the jet rolled to a stop. She'd lost her job, her power stripped, but she'd burned them down yet. The captain turned away, oblivious, and Claire pocketed her phone, her pulse slowing, her mind a furnace of revenge. They'd beaten her here, sure, but the war wasn't over. She'd watched them bleed, seen their strength, and now she'd twist it into their ruin, a blow they'd never see coming. Lena sank into 2A, her body a map of bruises, Marcus beside her, his breath ragged but his eyes sharp. "She's not done," he said, wiping blood from his lip. Lena nodded, her gaze fixed. On the empty galley, Claire's shadow gone but her threat lingering. "Neither are we." The plane stilled, engines winding down, London waiting beyond the gate, and they braced for the next fight, their victory a fragile shield against the storm Claire was brewing. "Hey folks, what's your verdict?" Comment number 1 if you're cheering Lena and Marcus for clawing back from that brutal beating, or number 2 if you think Claire's firing was too light a punishment for her vicious games. Smash that like button if you're blown away by their grit, and hit subscribe to catch every heart-pounding twist ahead. They've dodged the cuffs and reclaimed their throne, but can they outrun Claire's next strike? So, what's lurking? Now, will Claire's cryptic text topple their empire for good, or have Lena and Marcus already forged a defense she can't crack? Hang tight. The stakes are about to skyrocket. The Skylux jet sat motionless at Heathrow's gate, its engines silent. The cabin a hollow shell as the last passengers shuffled out into the terminal, their whispers trailing like smoke. Lena Hayes slumped in seat 2A, her stained blazer crumpled. Beside her, her bruised wrists throbbing from the cuffs that had only just been removed. Blood speckled her sleeve, a grim souvenir of the galley beating, but her eyes burned with a quiet fire, her mind already leaping ahead. Marcus leaned against 2B, his torn suit jacket dangling from one shoulder, his jaw swollen and crusted with blood, his breathing shallow from the kicks he'd taken. The captain had vanished to deal with Claire's firing, leaving them alone. In first class, the air heavy with the aftermath of their hard-won reprieve. Lena's phone buzzed on the armrest, her COO's text a lifeline. Accounts unfrozen, boards scrambling to fix this. She exhaled, her shoulders sagging. "We're back in," she murmured, her voice hoarse but steady. Marcus grinned, wincing as it split his lip. "Told you they couldn't keep us down." But the ground was shifting faster than they knew. Lena swiped her phone, pulling up Skylux's internal dashboard, her fingers trembling as she logged in. The screen flared, stock prices flashing red, plummeting 30% in hours. The drug scandal's viral spread a wildfire they couldn't outrun. Her breath caught, her bruised hand gripping the phone tighter. "Marcus, look at this," she said, tilting the screen. He leaned over, his grin fading, his eyes narrowing. "What the hell?" Before he could finish, her phone buzzed again. A call from her assistant, Jada, her voice tight with panic. "Lena, the board's flipped. They're saying you're unfit to lead, drug claims, the fight, all of it. They've locked you out." Lena's heart sank, a cold dread coiling in her gut. "Who's behind it?" she snapped. Jada hesitated, then whispered, "Vincent Pierce. He's on the ground calling an emergency meeting now." Vincent Pierce, Skylux's CFO, a slick exec with a shark smile and a history of backroom deals. Lena's mind raced, connecting the dots. Claire's text, "Crash their empire," wasn't a bluff. She'd looped in Pierce, her ground, contact, and now he'd staged a coup, turning their own board against them. Marcus slammed his fist on the armrest, the thud echoing in the empty cabin. "That bastard's using her lie to steal it all." Lena nodded, her bruised wrist aching as she dialed Jada back, her voice a whip. "Get me loyalists. Anyone still with us. Now." Jada's reply came fast. "On it. 5 are solid. Calling them in." Lena hung up, her gaze locking with Marcus's. "We fight this. They don't get Skylux." He nodded, his bloodied jaw set. Damn right. The plane's door hissed open, ground crew bustling in, oblivious to the war brewing above their heads. Lena's phone buzzed again. Jada. Meeting's live. Pierce is pushing a vote to oust you. Lena sprang up, her heels unsteady but her resolve ironclad, Marcus rising beside her, his duffel slung over his shoulder. They staggered off the jet, the terminal a blur of lights and faces, their battered bodies ignored by the crowd. Lena dialed her loyalists on speaker, her voice cutting through the airport din. Pierce is staging a coup with Claire's drug lie. We own 51%. Remind them. I've got proof it's a setup. A gruff voice, Tom, their ops head, crackled back. He's got half the board scared, Lena. Stocks are tanking. They're buying his unfit crap. She gritted her teeth, her bruised arm throbbing. Expose him. He's Claire's puppet. Pull his financials. There's dirt there. Tom grunted agreement, and minutes later Jada texted, Tom's in. Pierce's. Ties to Claire are leaking. Offshore accounts, hush money. Boards wavering. Lena's lips curled, a spark of hope flaring as they limped toward a lounge, Marcus's arm around her for support. Her phone pinged again, live feed from the boardroom, Pierce's voice oozing confidence. Lena and Marcus are liabilities. We cut them, we save Skylux. But Tom's voice broke in, sharp and damning. Check your screens. Pierce funneled cash to Claire Donovan. This is a setup. The feed erupted, gasps and shouts, and Jada's next text hit. Votes off. You're back in. Lena sank into a lounge chair, her body screaming, relief washing over her. Marcus dropped beside her, his grin bloody but triumphant. We did it, he rasped. Again. The board reversed the coup, stocks ticking up as the truth bled online. Pierce exposed, Claire's firing trending harder. Lena fired off a text to her legal team. Arrest her. Conspiracy, assault, all of it. Minutes later, Jada confirmed. Claire's in custody. Cops nabbed her at the gate. Lena leaned back, her bruised wrists resting on the chair, Marcus's hand brushing hers. They'd clawed their empire back, turned Pierce's betrayal into dust, and Claire was locked. Up victory hard-earned and sweet. The lounge hummed around them, travelers oblivious, the TV flashing Skylux's logo, their names scrolling as heroes. Marcus chuckled, wincing. She's done now. Lena nodded, her eyes glinting. She'd better be. They toasted with water from plastic cups, their empire intact, the storm finally breaking. Or so they thought. Claire's arrest wasn't the end. As Lena sipped her water, a klaxon blared through the terminal, red lights flashing, a voice booming over the PA. All passengers, remain seated. Bomb threat on Flight 17. Lena's cup slipped, splashing her stained slacks, her eyes widening as Marcus bolted upright, his bloodied jaw dropping. Airport security swarmed, radios crackling, the lounge emptying in a panic. Lena's phone buzzed, her COO. Threats real, traced to Claire's phone, preset message. Lena's breath stopped, her mind reeling. Claire had planned this. A final blow from her jail cell, stranding them aboard their own jet. Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her up. We're stuck in this now, he said, his voice grim. Passengers screamed beyond the glass. The plane sealed off, a ticking trap they couldn't escape. Claire's smirk flashed in Lena's mind, her text to Pierce a prelude to this chaos. She'd lost her job, her freedom, but she'd rigged one. Last strike, a bomb threat to paralyze Skylux, to bury them in fear even from behind bars. Lena clutched her phone, her bruised fingers trembling, the lounge a cage as security locked it down. Marcus scanned the chaos, his voice low. She's hitting us where it hurts most. Lena nodded, her resolve steeling despite the panic clawing her chest. We'll beat this too. But the klaxon wailed on, the threat a shadow swallowing their win. Claire's revenge a venom they couldn't yet purge. The Skylux jet loomed like a steel coffin on Heathrow's tarmac, its sleek hull locked tight under flashing red lights. The terminal a cacophony of screams and blaring klaxons as the bomb threat's echo ricocheted through the night. Lena Hayes stood in the sealed airport lounge, her stained blazer slipping off one shoulder, her bruised wrists trembling as she clutched her cracked phone, its screen a lifeline in the chaos. Marcus paced beside her, his torn suit jacket dangling, blood crusted on his swollen jaw, his eyes darting to the glass wall where passengers pounded for escape, their cries muffled but piercing. The bomb squad swarmed the plane, black-clad figures scurrying with detectors, their radios crackling orders over the PA. Stay calm. Remain in place. Lena's breath hitched, her mind reeling. Claire's preset threat, traced to her phone, had turned their victory into a trap, stranding them aboard their own airline, cuffed again by fate. Marcus gripped her arm, his voice rough. She's screwing us from a cell. Unreal. The lounge doors slammed shut, security bolting them, trapping Lena and Marcus with a handful of stragglers, a wide-eyed woman clutching a toddler, a businessman, sweating through his suit, a teenage boy in a hoodie clutching his backpack. The TV blared, Skylux's logo spinning, a reporter's voice cutting in. Flight 17 on lockdown, bomb threat confirmed, owners Lena and Marcus Hayes implicated. Lena's stomach dropped, her bruised fingers tightening on her phone. Implicated, she's framing us again. Marcus kicked a chair, its clatter lost in the din. We beat her coup and now this. Her phone buzzed, her COO. Cops think you're involved. Stocks crashing again. The room spun, her empire crumbling anew, Claire's venom seeping deeper from behind bars. Then a figure caught her eye beyond the glass. Claire, her navy apron gone, her bun loose, slipping through the terminal chaos, free. Lena's breath stopped, her voice a hiss. She's out there. She escaped. Marcus spun, his bloodied, jaw dropping as he spotted her, her smirk flashing as she vanished into the crowd. How the hell? He started, but Lena's mind raced, piecing it. Claire's arrest was a feint, her ground contact pulling strings to spring her. The bomb threat wasn't just a scare, it was her endgame, and she was loose to play it. Lena's phone buzzed again. Jada. Security's overwhelmed, Claire's gone. Panic clawed her chest, but she shoved it down, her resolve a flickering flame. We stop this now, she said, her voice steel despite the tremble. The bomb squad's shouts grew frantic, detectors beeping, passengers sobbing as the clock ticked down. Lena's cuffs still hung loose from earlier, a grim reminder, and she twisted them off, her bruised wrist screaming as she hacked her phone into the plane's intercom system, her fingers flying over the cracked screen. She'd built Skylux's tech, knew its veins, and now she'd bleed it to save them. The signal caught, her voice booming through the jet. This is Lena Hayes. Bomb squad. Check the forward galley. Hidden panel starboard side. It's a decoy. The squad hesitated, then moved, radios crackling as they pried open the panel, revealing a fake device, wires, a timer, no payload. Gasps rippled, the toddler's mother sobbing relief, but Lena's gut twisted. Claire was too smart for a bluff. Marcus scanned the lounge, his eyes narrowing. If that's fake, where's the real one? Lena's breath caught, her gaze dropping to their seats, 2A and 2B, untouched since they'd limped off. She bolted to the glass, pounding it, her voice raw. Under our seats, check there. A squad member glanced up, nodding, and raced back aboard, his detector screeching as it neared 2B. He dove under, yanking out a black box, wires tangled, a digital clock ticking down from 90 seconds, a real bomb pulsing with death. The lounge froze, the businessman dropping his briefcase, the teenager's hoodie slipping back, his face pale. The squad tech worked fast, snipping wires with trembling hands, sweat beading on his brow. Lena held her breath, Marcus's arm tight. Around her, the clock hitting 10, then 5, then 0. Silence. A green light blinked. The bomb dead, disarmed with seconds to spare. Relief crashed over her, her knees buckling, Marcus catching her as the squad cheered, the PA crackling. Threat neutralized. Stand by. The toddler's mother wept, hugging her child, the businessman sinking into a chair, his suit soaked. Lena's phone buzzed, her COO. Your heroes. Stocks spiking. She exhaled, her bruised body sagging, thinking they'd won. Claire's bomb defused, their empire salvaged. Marcus grinned, blood flaking from his lip. We beat her again. But the victory soured fast. The intercom crackled again, Claire's voice slithering through, icy and sharp. This isn't over. Lena's heart stopped, her eyes darting. To Marcus, his grin vanishing. She's got control, she whispered, dread icing her veins. Claire's escape had been a masterstroke. Sprung from custody by her exec ally, she'd hijacked ground control, her voice now a ghost in the system, her threat a live wire. The lounge lights flickered, the PA looping her words. You think you've won? Watch me burn it all. Security scrambled, radios blaring, but Claire's hack locked the jet. Its systems hers. A final twist of the knife from a woman who'd lost everything but her spite. Lena's phone buzzed. Jada. She's in the tower. Cops can't get her. Marcus punched the glass, his knuckles bloodying, his voice a roar. She's gonna crash us. Lena's mind raced, her cracked screen a weapon she'd wield again. But the clock was ticking anew, Claire's vengeance a storm they couldn't outfly. The Skylux jet sat locked on Heathrow's tarmac, a steel prisoner under flashing red lights. The terminal a chaos of shouts and klaxons, as Claire's voice echoed through the intercom. A venomous thread weaving terror through the night. Lena. Hayes stood in the sealed lounge, her stained blazer hanging loose, her bruised wrists trembling as she gripped her cracked phone, its screen a fractured shield against the storm. Marcus paced beside her, his torn suit jacket bunched around his shoulders, blood flaking from his swollen jaw. His eyes wild as he scanned the glass wall where security battled to regain control. The bomb squad lingered outside, their victory over the real bomb under 2B a fleeting relief, now overshadowed by Claire's hijack of ground control, her voice a relentless taunt. Resign, or I crash this plane into London. Your choice. Lena's breath caught, her mind reeling. Claire escaped and unhinged, held their empire hostage, her spite a blade poised to slit its throat. Marcus slammed his fist against the glass, the thud lost in the din. She's insane. The lounge trembled, a handful of trapped souls, a sobbing mother with her toddler, a sweat-soaked businessman, a teenage boy clutching his hoodie, huddled in corners, their eyes darting to Lena and Marcus, fear etching their faces. The TV flickered, Skylux's logo spinning, a reporter's voice cutting through. Flight 17 hijacked remotely. Owners Lena and Marcus Hayes face ultimatum. Lena's stomach twisted, her bruised fingers tightening on her phone. She's turning us into villains again, she hissed, her voice raw. Marcus spun, his bloody jaw set. We don't bend to this. Her phone buzzed. Her COO. She's locked ground systems. Cops can't breach the tower. The room shrank, Claire's grip a noose tightening, her demand a death sentence to their legacy. Lena's resolve flared, a steel core forged in the fire. She'd built Skylux and she'd tear it from Claire's hands. Claire's voice crackled again, sharp and cold. 5 minutes, Hayes. Sign it over, or this jet's a missile. Lena's eyes narrowed, her cracked screen glowing as she hacked back into the plane's network, her fingers dancing over the keys, her bruised wrist screaming with each tap. She'd cracked it before, knew its bones. Now she'd break Claire's. Hold. Marcus, rally them, she said, nodding to the lounge stragglers, her voice steady despite the tremor. He turned, his presence a battered titan, his growl cutting through their panic. Listen up. Barricade the exits, chairs, bags, anything. Buy us time. The businessman blinked, then nodded, dragging a table, his suit ripping as he moved. The teenager shoved his backpack against the door, his hoodie slipping while the mother stacked chairs, her toddler clinging to her leg. Marcus joined, his bloodied hands heaving, a wall rising as Lena worked. Her screen flared, ground controls, interface blooming under her touch. She'd slipped through Claire's lock, a backdoor she'd buried in the code years ago. A ghost in the machine. Got you, she muttered, overriding the hijack, her commands racing to free the jet systems. The intercom hissed, Claire's voice faltering mid-threat. You can't? Then cutting out, replaced by static. Lena's lips curled, her bruised fingers pausing as the jet's lights blinked, doors unlocking. Ground crew shouting relief beyond the glass. Marcus grinned, wiping blood from his lip. You did it. The barricade held, unnecessary now, the lounge a fortress they'd defended. Security swarmed the tarmac, radios blaring. Claire's plan unraveling, her grip slipping as Lena's. Hack turned the tide. Police stormed the tower minutes later, their boots echoing as they dragged Claire out, her bun wild, her wrists cuffed, her screams a banshee wail. "They'll pay! This isn't over!" Lena watched through the glass, her phone buzzing. "Jada, she's down. Systems clear." Marcus sank beside her, his torn sleeve brushing her arm, his voice rough. "We beat her. Finally." Lena nodded, her bruised body sagging, relief flooding her veins. The jet rolled free, passengers safe, their empire intact. Claire's last stand crushed under their defiance. The businessman slumped against his table. The teenager exhaled. The mother hugged her toddler, tears streaking her face. Lena's phone buzzed again. Her COO. "Stock soaring. You're legends." They'd turned chaos into triumph, a victory carved from blood and grit, and London stretched beyond, theirs to claim. But the storm wasn't done. As Lena pocketed her phone, a security guard approached, his face grim, handing her a tablet. "Found this on the tarmac. Leaked video. You need to see it." She tapped play, her breath stopping as grainy footage flickered. Skylux execs, shadowy figures in a boardroom whispering. Claire was just the start. We take it all next time. Marcus leaned in, his bloodied jaw tightening, his voice a growl. "What the hell is this?" Lena's mind raced, the faces familiar. Pierce's allies, still lurking, their coup a prelude to something deeper. The guard shrugged, his badge glinting. "Dropped from her pocket maybe. Cops are digging." Claire's arrest flashed on. The TV, her smirk haunting even in cuffs. And Lena's triumph soured. Her final stand was a feint, a spark for a bigger fire they hadn't seen coming. Lena clutched the tablet, her bruised fingers trembling, her eyes locking with Marcus's. She wasn't alone, she whispered, dread coiling anew. He nodded, his torn sleeve flapping as he stood, his voice a vow. "We'll root them out." The lounge stilled, the mother's sobs fading, the businessman staring, the teenager's hoodie shadowing his fear. Claire's allies waited, a conspiracy, buried in Skylux's bones, and Lena knew this victory was a breath before the plunge, their empire teetering on a knife's edge she'd fight to hold. The Skylux jet rested quietly on Heathrow's tarmac, its hull gleaming under the dawn's first light, the chaos of the night fading into a brittle calm as emergency lights dimmed and the terminal hummed with weary relief. Lena Hayes stood at a makeshift podium outside the gate, her stained blazer slung over her arm, her bruised wrists exposed as she gripped the microphone, her voice steady despite the ache in her battered body. Marcus towered beside her, his torn suit jacket patched with dried blood, his swollen jaw a testament to their war, his eyes sharp as he scanned the crowd. Reporters, passengers, airport staff, all gathered in a semicircle, cameras flashing, like gunfire. The air buzzed with anticipation, the TV screens in the terminal replaying Claire's arrest, her cuffs glinting as she was dragged away, her smirk a ghost haunting the footage. Lena's breath steadied, her resolve a steel thread, weaving through her words. "Last night we faced an attack, not just on us but on Skylux, on justice itself. Claire Donovan's racism, her lies, her threats. They stop here. We're rooting out the rot, starting with her allies." The crowd erupted, cheers mingling with murmurs, phones raised to capture every syllable. Marcus stepped forward, his voice a gravelly roar. "We built this airline from nothing, and no one takes it from us." Applause thundered, the businessman from the lounge nodding from the back, his sweat-soaked suit a badge of survival, the teenage boy in his hoodie clapping beside him, his backpack slung low. Lena's phone buzzed in her pocket, her COO. "Stock's up 60%. You're icons." She allowed a faint smile, her bruised fingers flexing, the weight of their empire lifting as the world hailed them heroes. Reporters shouted questions. "What's next? How'd you stop her?" And Lena raised a hand, silencing them. "We're not done. There's more to clean up and we'll do it. Together." The promise landed, a vow etched in the morning air, and the crowd roared again, their faith a tide pulling Skylux back from the brink. The terminal screens flashed their names, stock tickers soaring, the narrative flipping. Lena and Marcus, battered but unbowed, champions of a fight bigger than one flight. They stepped back, Marcus's arm brushing hers, his grin splitting his bloodied lip. "We nailed it," he rasped, his voice rough with pride. Lena nodded, her eyes glinting, the bruises on her wrists a map of their survival. "They see us, now." The press swarmed, cameras rolling, but a security guard slipped through, his face taut, handing Lena the tablet from the tarmac, the leaked video of Skylux execs whispering. Claire was just the start. She'd watched it, assumed it was Pierce's crew plotting a second coup, a real threat lurking in their shadows. But as the crowd thinned, her mind gnawed at it, a splinter she couldn't shake. Back in the lounge, now empty, save for scattered chairs, Lena sank into a seat, her stained slacks cold against her thighs. Marcus dropping beside her, his torn sleeve flapping. She replayed the video, the grainy voices a hiss in the quiet. Pierce's allies, their faces half lit, plotting to take it all. Her COO burst in, Jada trailing, her tablet glowing with updates. "Claire's locked up tight, conspiracy charges stacking," Jada said, her voice brisk. "But that video's blowing up online." Lena's brow furrowed, her bruised fingers pausing the footage, a hunch blooming. "It's too clean," she muttered, her voice low. Marcus leaned in, his bloodied jaw tightening. "What do you mean?" She rewound, zooming on a shadow, a flicker of her own silhouette, a glitch no one else caught. Her heart skipped, realization crashing in. "This isn't theirs. It's ours." She hacked her phone into Skylux's servers, her cracked screen a battlefield, her fingers flying as she traced the video's source. Not Pierce, not Claire, but her own team, a file she'd planted months ago as a trap for disloyal execs. "It's fake," she said, her voice ablade, her eyes locking with Marcus's. "I made it, to smoke them out." Jada's jaw dropped, her tablet slipping. "You staged it?" Lena nodded, her bruised wrist trembling as she pulled up logs. Dozens of execs resigning overnight, their emails frantic, caught in her net. They thought it was real, panicked, and ran. Claire's chaos was the push I needed. Marcus's grin widened, blood flaking from his lip. "You played them all. The twist flipped everything. Claire's war, Pierce's coup, the bomb, the hijack, all unwitting pawns in Lena's chess game. A purge she'd orchestrated to cleanse Skylux's rot." Her phone buzzed. Her legal team. 20 execs out. "Board's yours." She leaned back, her battered body sinking into the chair, triumph a wildfire in her chest. Marcus chuckled, his torn sleeve brushing her arm. "You're a damn genius," she smirked, her eyes glinting. "They lost because we never did." The lounge stilled, the terminal humming beyond. Skylux's logo glowing on the TV, their names cemented as legends. Claire sat in a cell, her note, "You lost because we never did," slipped to her by a guard, a final taunt she'd never unravel, her defeat a lock Lena had turned. But the calm was a mirage. As Lena pocketed her phone, her COO lingered, his face grim. "We found more, emails, offshore accounts. Pierce wasn't alone. There's a network, deeper than we thought." Lena's smile faded, her bruised fingers curling, Marcus's grin vanishing. "How deep?" she asked, her voice steady but edged. Jada hesitated, her tablet dimming. "Industry-wide. They're watching you now." The room chilled, the dawn's light a thin veil over a war unfinished, Skylux a fortress they'd reclaimed but not secured. Lena stood, her stained blazer slipping to the floor, her eyes locking with Marcus's. "Then we keep fighting," she said, her resolve aflame unquenched. He nodded, his bloodied jaw set, his voice a vow. "Always." The real battle loomed, a shadow stretching beyond Claire, beyond Pierce, a fight they'd started but couldn't yet end. The saga of Lena and Marcus Hayes in Flight Attendant Refuses to Serve Black Couple, not knowing they own the airline, offers raw, powerful lessons about resilience, systemic bias, and the fight for justice. First, it shows that prejudice can strike anywhere, even at 35,000 feet, morphing a simple flight into a battlefield of racism. Lena and Marcus faced relentless attacks, from Claire's initial snub to the mob's violence and the drug frame-up, yet they never crumbled. Their story teaches us that strength isn't just enduring, it's striking back with cunning and grit, turning every blow into a weapon. Second, it exposes how systems, airlines, boards, even passengers, can amplify one person's hate into a tidal wave of injustice, freezing accounts and crashing stocks on a lie. Lena's genius in faking the exec video to purge her enemies proves that outsmarting the system is sometimes the only way to survive it. Third, it's a stark reminder that victory is fleeting. Claire's bomb threat and the deeper conspiracy lurking beyond her defeat show that racism's roots run deep, demanding constant vigilance. Finally, their triumph isn't just personal, it's a call to challenge bias wherever it festers, using every tool at hand, from live streams to hacks. So, what's your takeaway? How would you fight back if you were in Lena's shoes, facing a racist mob or a corporate coup? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Hit that like button if their resilience fired you up, and subscribe to catch more tales of defiance against injustice. Share this story to spark the convo, because every voice counts in this fight. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Here's wishing you the courage to stand tall and the smarts to turn the tables no matter the odds.